Mortuary Files is presented in a question and answer format, featuring a retired licensed funeral director. This program explores the funeral service profession in depth, including funeral home practices, procedures, customer experiences, as well as real-world stories involving the families they serve. Some topics may be sensitive and may involve in-depth discussions of death, grief, and loss. Viewer discretion is advised.
And now, here are your hosts of Mortuary Files, Ric and Randy.
Hey, welcome everybody to Mortuary Files. My name is Rick, and I'm a retired funeral director, embalmer, and crematory operator with over 35 years of experience. And this fellow over here is my big brother, Randy.
Hey everyone, welcome to Mortuary Files. My name's Randy, and I'm the handsome one.
Yeah, but Mom always liked me best.
As you think so. Alrighty, so what we're doing here is my brother Rick was a funeral director for 35 years.
Yep.
And so I'm going to turn over to him so he can kind of sort of give you his little bio. And then when he's done with that, we're going to do a question and answer session. And then what we're going to do is we're going to ask some questions. He's going to answer. Now, he's going to answer as it really is, the way things really are. And so if you have any questions, what you can do is down in the description below is an email, and it's mortuaryfiles@yahoo.com or mortuaryfiles@gmail.com. You can send us your questions, whatever you have. Don't worry about if you think it's too sensitive. Send it to us and we will ask it on the air. All we do is ask you to give us your first name and where you're located. And if we need to correct the wording a little bit, we'll correct the wording a little bit. And then a future episode, maybe your question will be asked. So with that, Rick, why don't you give the viewers kind of sort of how long you've been doing it, why you did it, all that good kind of stuff.
Yeah, so, and I was asked that a lot in my life. Why did you want to do that for a living? Well, before I was a funeral director, I was in the military. I was in the Coast Guard for 10 years. I got out and got a rude awakening like a lot of military guys do when they get out. When I got out, I realized that the skills that I'd learned didn't really translate that well into the public sector. And so I made a list of things that I could do, that I wanted to do, but by that time I'd already had kids. I was 30 years old, and my options were limited. And this was one of the things that was on my list that I could afford to go back to school for, because it was only 1 year school and 2 year apprenticeship instead of getting a 4-year degree.
So you went to school and worked? I
did.
I remember you worked at the Church's Chicken.
Yeah, I did. I was a manager for them.
Was that at the same time?
That was before I went to work at the cemetery.
Because I think that was after I come down in Pensacola. I think that was after.
Yeah, that was a little bit before I went to work for a cemetery, and then transitioned from there to a funeral home.
Alrighty, and you've been doing that for 35 years. Myself, I'm just a layman. I never became anything to do with the death industry. I was never anything that I know about it. It's just what we've talked about. I was basically a truck. I was in the military. I was in the Marine Corps. I drove truck for a while. My last 20 years, I was an information technology specialist. Oh, there you go. I don't even have a Marine Corps cup. What do I? Oh, here's what I got.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I the last few years I did security work. If everyone heard of the TJ Maxx debacle back around 2003, 2004, I don't remember the exact time.
It was your fault?
Yeah, my fault. But when the guys were going out into the parking lot and stealing people's numbers, I was one of the techs that was called in to help get the infrastructure back up and back working. So that's basically it. I'm going to be asking the questions. You're going to send me to the viewers out there. You guys are going to send me the questions. I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to read them to Dick, and then he's going to answer them. So anything you want to do, send them to us. And in one of the future episodes, we're going to have a special coming up. And you, if you like, we're working out the details now behind the scenes, but if you like, you can get a hold of Dick, one-on-one conversation with Dick for questions you have. And because sometimes we know it's hard to talk to a funeral director, and generally we only do it when we need funeral directors. So with that, if you're ready, what is the biggest misconception people have about the funeral industry?
There are really two that I think of. And the first one is that we must all be a bunch of weirdos. And we're really not. We're just normal people that have the ability to do what we do. Um, and you have to care about people. You have to have a strong stomach. You have to have some strength to you because there's a physical part to this job. Um, the, the other misconception is that all funeral directors make a lot of money. And that's not necessarily true. It might be true if you're the owner or the owner's son. It might be true if you're the manager. But for the rank and file funeral director, for most of my life, I made in the range of $45,000, let's say. It wasn't until my last 2 years that I did any better than that. But for most of my career, it wasn't that big of a salary. Those are the two biggest misconceptions.
You have people think you're ghoulish?
Yeah, believe it or not. And
Really?
most funeral directors have a good sense of humor. Some of us have a weird sense of humor. Most of us do. But we don't necessarily enjoy, if that's a good word to use, having to do what we do. We just have the ability to do it.
When you were in school, was there like OJT while you were in school? Did you? I don't even know what is mortuary school. Tell us about mortuary school.
It depends on the state, but here where I'm at in southern Georgia, it is only it's a specialized school, kind of like a trade school that specifically trains funeral directors. It's not a normal college, but it's available to anyone who wants to go. When I went, it was only 1 year and a 2-year apprenticeship. Now today it's changed. It's actually a mortuary of science degree, a 2-year degree. I think they call it associates. I actually don't have the associate's degree, but everybody graduating now does. And you learn everything from funeral traditions. You're not necessarily taught how to embalm, although you help. Um, while you're in school, you have to do what they call clinicals. And that's 12. You have to have some participation in 12 individual embalmings and a number of funerals themselves.
Okay, so when you're in school, do you go out to like funeral homes? I mean, obviously you don't embalm people at the school.
We did.
You at the school.
We actually had a preparation room at the school, but there's a lot of students, so I was only involved in one case at the school.
And the school didn't have funerals, so where was the body from or for? Were they?
It was basically an unclaimed body from the medical examiner's office that used them for that purpose. And then they were returned to the medical examiner's office, and most of the time, if they're unclaimed, they're either cremated or buried in what we call a pauper's grave.
Okay, all right. So it was in a sense, a donated body.
Yeah.
Okay, and your schooling was how long?
1 year.
1 year, and at
But
5 days.
Today it's a year and a half, but yeah, 5 days a week.
5 days a week. And did
8 till 3.
Did you and I had the GI Bill when we went through. So did you use that for the school, or did you just?
I didn't have the GI Bill. Actually, I served a little bit after you. There were a few years where they stopped it. I think it was when Jimmy Carter got in office. They stopped
Montgomery Bill or something.
I had nothing.
Nothing.
No education bill for me.
Oh, well, I always thought that when the GI Bill ended, that it went into like the Montgomery Bill or something.
It might have later. I think it's back in effect now. I did qualify for what they call a Pell Grant because I didn't make a lot of money when I got out of service. So I had half of my tuition paid for, which at that time was $12,000 for the 1 year, and they paid for 6, and I had a loan for the other 6.
Did you work outside when you were doing it? Yeah.
My day started at 6 o'clock in the morning, ended at 3 o'clock with the school, and then I had to drive to work, and I worked till 11, got off, and got up at 1 o'clock, or went to bed by 1 o'clock in the morning, got back up at 6 the next morning, did it again.
Because I don't remember you going to school, but then again, you know,
I was pretty busy.
I don't remember much about those days. All right. So what kind of strange things have people thought about you? Anybody come up to you and say, how can you do this?
Only my family.
I would think most of the family
Other
was
people don't have they they wouldn't say that to you unless they're trying to be rude.
over the years, you had said, "I was kind of interested in it."
Mhm.
What about, our brothers and sisters? Anybody else?
Absolutely not, and not even my son. My son helped me one day. I hired him for one day at a funeral home I was working at, and at the end of that day, he says, "Dad, whatever you do, if you get your own funeral home, don't name it and Sons because I ain't doing this no more."
Be like with Randall, he never did wanna go to truck driving. Alright, so we have our next question. Why in the world do funerals cost so much when people go out? Well, you know, the industry with, every time you're looking on TV, there's always commercials about life insurance or death insurance or something of that nature. Kinda give an overall why funerals cost so much.
Well, there's several reasons for it. The number one reason probably is like everything else. Inflation, believe me, has taken a big toll on the funeral business. Everybody wants to be paid more money. Caskets wholesale cost more than they used to. It costs more to build a funeral home than it used to. And one of the bigger things that I think it was the change in the industry that happened just about the time that I got started, which was a lot of funeral homes sold out to corporations. And a corporation has stock that is usually publicly traded, and they're worried about profit from quarter to quarter. That's not the case with a mom and pop funeral home. And so they were more profit conscious than, Johnson and Sons has been there 100 years used to be.
Okay, and so when you see a sign, I'm driving down the road and I'm seeing a funeral home there, and I look up and I see, Jones and Sons Funeral Home. We don't know if that's well, let's go this way. Tell us first, what's the difference between a corporate generally? What's the difference between a corporate and a family owned structure wise?
Well, structure wise, is the owner is actually there usually on site with the family owned funeral home. I worked for a couple of those, and I've also worked for two different corporations. And I've actually worked at several different funeral homes in my career. And the reason is once you get locked into one, there's very rarely is there any kind of a race type of a situation. If your name is not on the sign, if your last name is not on the sign, and you're at a family funeral home, you'll never be the manager, you'll never be the owner. You're always just going to be an employee.
So you might not be able, you will only be the man, you won't never be the manager, you'll be just a worker.
You'll always be just a funeral director or embalmer, and you're kind of pretty much pigeonholed there at the family owned.
So I remember that when our family died, we always had a particular funeral home we went to. And that funeral home, I'm sure that the owner of it, his name was Leonard. I'm sure he was probably gone by now. And I think it's corporate now. But if I wanted to take someone and bury someone through that funeral home, and I walked in there and said, "Hey, this was where my family was always at," I would not know if it's corporate or not.
Well, you might, because the largest corporation in the country actually has a logo, and that logo is out on the sign. Even if the family name's still on it, below that you'll see the logo. And but there are other corporations too that I don't think use a logo.
So you would have to really look, because I mean, I bet I drive by funeral homes all the time in this area, and I wouldn't know what the logo was. You know, does it say, a family corporation?
It says the largest one says dignity,
Okay, and I've
and
seen that.
that's
I've
who I
seen.
work.
Okay,
That's who I worked for a while.
so what would be, in your opinion, what's the difference between going to a corporate and a family-owned funeral home?
Well, honestly, the benefit of going to a corporately owned funeral home is they don't have to. There are a lot of options with funerals that I can show you how to save money on a casket. I can show you how to save money on a service. You don't have to have all the bells and whistles. And there are certain things like the caskets have a big range in the prices. You can do you don't have to have a formal visitation. You can just do a graveside service. There's lots of things, lots of ways to cut down the price a little bit.
So what is the biggest expense? Give me like from top to the bottom. What's the biggest expense? What are people most shocked about?
The number one charge on every price list, and you can go to any funeral home and ask for a price list, and they have to give them to you. It's federal law. And that's a good idea if you're worried about money and want to know what things cost. Go and just ask for one. But the thing that surprises people is the very first thing on every one of these lists. It's called the basic services of the funeral director and staff. It's a basic charge that every single family has to pay. And basically, the only way I can really explain it would be it's the keeping on the lights fee, because the leases and people getting paid and the electric bill and the cost of the funeral, all that stuff has to be paid whether we have one funeral or 25.
So when I walk into a funeral home, you have a set price. We're just going to call it $1,200. I don't know. So up higher. Okay. So if I walked in, I'm at least going to pay.
Well, it's changed a little since I've been, like I said, been gone a couple. It goes up every year, but it's in the neighborhood of about $4,000.
All right. So even if I bought even if now that's for a standard.
That's just services. That's just the service, the basic services.
But that's just for a standard funeral.
No, that's just the basic services of us being available. You still have to add the casket and vault and the cemetery.
Well, yeah, no, but I meant for a body funeral, a body burial, body showings. You're not cremated, because right. Cremation
is different. They have
is different. So if I come to you and I say, Mom just passed away. I'm sure I'm calling you on the phone. Mom passed away this morning at the hospital, and this is where she wanted to be buried from. She wanted to be laid out here. I come in to see you. I sit down. Before we do anything, I'm going to already owe you $4,000.
If you're going to have a
traditional, that's the word, traditional funeral.
That was at our funeral. But there are other funeral homes that charge a little less. There's maybe some that charge a little more. But we were probably I don't know if you want to call it the largest or the most well-known funeral home in our town.
The last one that you worked at, corporate or
corporate,
it was corporate. Okay. But it had a name up on it, like something and Sons.
Yeah, had a name that had been there for years and years and years.
Okay. And of course, we want to be respectful, and we try our best not to name names and places and things like that, because we don't want to get our asses sued. You do it. So, and these are all our opinions, and they don't mean to disparage any corporate that's out there, because they're businesses. I don't care whether it's a mom and pop operation. It's a business.
They're in business. They are in business to make money, and we provide a valuable, needed service.
Mic went out. Check your mic. Look at your mic.
Two hours later.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Much better. All right. All righty. So you're gonna notice a little bit different in his audio. His microphone died on him. So we'll be working on that. So the question that I had,
imagine that something died while we're talking about death.
Oh boy. In Georgia, we know that you can be buried traditionally, and you can be cremated.
Right.
Do you have to? And we were talking about you might not know other states completely. Mm-hmm. So what we talk about here is really basically what you knew about Georgia when you were doing funeral services. Do I have to have a traditional funeral? Do I have to be cremated? Do I have any other choices? Do you have to be involved?
A funeral director does have to be involved at some point. You can't just take grandma out back and put her in the backyard. A permit has to be signed, but you don't have to have all the services. There are a lot of options. And, but yeah, funeral director does have to be embalmed. You don't have the equipment to handle a deceased person without using a funeral home.
In Michigan, if you have a certain amount of property,
Mhm.
you can be buried on your property.
Well, you can here too, but
Okay.
what people don't realize is that property absolutely has to be paid for 100%. You can't be making payments to a bank. You've got to have the deed in your hand because it has to be yours, not the bank's. And the
So,
second thing is, if you ever sell it, you have to disclose to the new buyer that grandma's in the back.
so is there, like here, you have to have a certain amount of acreage to do that? What about with you?
I don't know about the acreage. I have buried people on their farms before, but I'm not. They did have acreage, but I'm not sure how many acres they had. Yeah.
Interesting. So you've actually somebody wanted to be buried on their farm.
Oh yeah.
How
Yeah.
much different is that? Do you charge more for that?
Well, no, not for our services, but you save on cemetery charges.
Okay, but
And you don't have to have a vault if you don't want on your own property.
so I could take my backhoe and dig a hole, and
Yeah, you can do that. Matter of fact, they did.
so you got to go by certain state laws, I would be assumed.
They have to go to the county and get a permit to make that happen and prove to the county that they own the property. And
Okay, so the county says yes, you can bury grandma in the backyard. So we're talking Georgia, because who knows what
Right.
it is like up here. So vaults are really there just to keep the ground
yeah,
flat.
that's their main goal, is to hold the ground up so they don't collapse. If you ever go into an old cemetery, an old church, you'll notice you see the divot. That's because that didn't have a vault, and that casket has basically failed at that point. And the air that was inside that casket, it now creates a void, and that's what creates the dirt to fall down.
Or that the vault has collapsed. I've seen a few of those.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen one
I've
where there
I've
was a vault.
I've watched some videos where they dig in it, and
Mhm.
because it's because it's a big divot, and the family's all concerned, and they go in there, and the vault
Wow.
has gone
Well,
down.
I did see it happen one time, but
Yeah.
it was during a burial. But it was for a while they came out with plastic vaults, and we sold some of those. But I saw when I was actually standing there when it failed, and we had to stop and get a better vault and then proceed.
So on your experience, when you took somebody to the backyard and buried them, they may or may not require a vault.
Correct.
Can they be buried without a casket?
Yeah, you don't have to. You have to be placed in something in a dignified manner, but that could be just a sheet. It can be just a body bag. It doesn't have to be a casket.
So the city, state, county, whatever the governing body is for that
Right.
burial is
Mhm.
saying you got to wrap them up. They got to be in something. You just can't plop them in the ground like the
Right.
old
Right.
westerns where you see them dig a hole and they just roll them into the ground.
Boot heel? No. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then once you're done, we're speaking strictly of a backyard funeral. Once it's done,
Mhm.
the owner would be responsible for closing.
If they
You don't
bought,
stand there and watch because
if they,
here, well,
yeah, I actually do.
because here in Michigan, funeral directors always stay and watch. And I was talking to one, and they said
We're
they're
required to.
required. Yeah, well,
We're
there you go.
required to. Yeah.
They say they're
That's what.
required to see the dirt go on it, a certain amount of dirt go on it.
Yeah, that's why I'm there, is to verify that it happens. And my license on the line. If I leave early, I could lose my license.
Okay, so if Dr. Frankenstein came back and took because they left it sitting on top of because sometimes the family will leave it.
Once it's closed, my responsibility is done. If somebody comes back later, I got nothing to do with that.
Well, like I watched a funeral, a burial at a local cemetery here, and they put the body on some stance,
Mhm.
not anywhere near where the hole was,
Right.
and they put it on the stance,
Mhm.
and then what's the term for that thing that they put it on? Where you put the casket down on and everybody sits around and you have the thing. Is it that machine that they have there called anything?
Um,
I know that's not part of you. That's really part of the cemetery.
it is, but it's got a name to it. That's a good question. It's not a catafalque. Catafalque is just something you place the casket on, but the one that that helps lower it,
Yeah.
that's called a lowering device.
Okay, well they sat it on there.
Right.
And
It's got
then,
straps and a little thing that turns and it lowers the casket
yeah.
into the ground.
And of course, then they had the chairs all around. They all did their, the religious person was there and gave his little sermon, and then they everybody got up, everybody left, and then they took it up, they put it on the back of the truck, and then they drove it to the back, drove it to the hole that they had where the vault was, and then they put it in. But by that time, there was nobody left. All the family was gone.
Right. But the funeral director stayed. Yeah.
Alrighty. Anything else you want to say, Rick?
Yeah, there is a reason they do that, because a lot of times the actual grave site is either muddy or it's on a hill or it's an unsafe place for people to walk. And so they do it on a nice level piece of ground close by, but where people won't trip and fall and that kind of thing.
All right. Well, I think what we'll do here is we're going to transition a little bit because we got about 4 minutes left, I think. And what I'd like to do is, funeral directors, you said earlier, funeral directors have a sense of humor. I think sometimes you have to have a sense of humor.
You do.
And I think what we're going to do at this point, we're going to do something, Rick, called Rick's Oddities.
Yeah.
His tales are strange, delightfully spooky, all of them quirky, a little bit kooky. Some are downright weird and a little ooky. They are Rick's Oddities. He tells them with a sly little grin. You won't believe the spins they're in. Randy heard them over and over again. Now it's your turn to hear Rick's Oddities.
The show can't be all just serious because strange things happen, does it not?
They do.
And one of the strange things that happened on you is your first funeral that you ever.
Oh, you remember my story, don't you?
So,
well, if I'm going to tell a story, I got to put on my funeral director hat.
All right, tell us about tell us about your first ever funeral that you drove the hearse.
I'll never forget that one because it actually was the very first funeral that I was totally in charge of after I got my license, and everything went fine. The funeral went fine. The family was happy. We all got in our cars afterwards and we headed to the cemetery, which was about 5 miles away. Got within about a mile of the cemetery, and there were 40 cars behind me. And all of a sudden, the red light started flashing.
All righty, everybody. Well, at this point, we did have technical difficulties and we had to stop filming. Now, if you'd like to hear the rest of the story, please join us for our next episode. We promise we'll get better at it. This was only our first. But in the meantime, if you like this content, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and of course, subscribe. Thank you very much, and we'll see all of you on the next episode.
Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet, from your head down to your feet. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week, until your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out. The worms play pinochle on your snout. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose. They eat the jelly between your toes. A big hungry worm with a rolling eye crawls in your stomach and out your eye. Your stomach turns a slimy green, and pus pours out like whipping cream. You spread it on a piece of bread, and that's what you eat when you are dead.